Hello class. Part of working with end-of-life care also includes the ability to know and speak well and understand the nuances of organ and tissue donation, as there are some very specific rules and state laws regarding this. And I want to make sure that you at least get a few key points. Normally, we would have Carolina Donor Services reps try to either Zoom in and have a meeting with us, or come in person and do a presentation. But because of our scheduling, that wasn't possible this semester. So I'm going to go over some of the key elements that they normally cover, just to make sure that you at least get some of the basics down regarding this. So in general, they try to cover, what's what's their services, what do they do, what are the types and the needs and the severity for needs for organs for transplants, as well as tissues, and then kind of some of the legal ramifications, and then lastly some myths that really go along with this subject. So Carolina Donor Services, or you'll see that abbreviated CDS, they are a federally designated organ procurement organization that covers the state of North Carolina. They serve about 100 hospitals in 77 counties, and even up into southern Virginia. So they have a huge population base that they are responsible for. They have 4 transplant centers. These are hospitals that they physically will bring the organs to or have them shipped to, so that transplanted services can take place. And that's a special designation. While organs and tissue can be recovered at pretty much any of the 100 hospitals that they work with, and they will contract out to use the operating rooms in those facilities to retrieve the organs. The actual organs are not transplanted, but in certain designated transplant centers. So as you can imagine, their main mission is to really maximize the options for organ and tissue donation because of the huge unmet need. And these are some of the statistics that they gave me last year. Their website may have updated some of this, and I'm going to point you to their website also for, so you may see some even more increased numbers. And as we know with chronic disease for adults, and many of the diseases we've talked about this semester, that need increases greatly the more volume of patients with chronic disease occurs. So thus we know there's a huge unmet need. What is unusual in our country, though, that's different from some other countries, is that 85% of people say they support organ donation. However, less than half of those folks register as donors. So it is really important that not only do we utilize Carolina Donor Services for our patients properly on an inpatient basis when deaths occur, but also that we as nurses be very knowledgeable about the rules, the regulations, and can communicate that even in outpatient settings to people who might be questioning that, and they get more information properly. There are regulatory issues from CMS to Joint Commission to state law. Federally, hospitals must make a phone call and notify the organ procurement organization of every death, irregardless of the age of the patient or the cause of death. It is the OPO's responsibility to evaluate whether or not they could meet any kind of criteria. And this is a way to kind of look at optimizing that we get every opportunity to interface to see if there might be the potential for some type of organ or tissue donation. Also, Joint Commission made it required that every hospital has a written agreement with the OPO, and that they have policies and procedures that they monitor back and forth. Our Carolina Donor Services rule for notification at time of death is that we have to call them with every death within 1 hour of the death occurring. Preferably, we would contact people earlier than that, to really evaluate whether or not they, with an impending death, make them aware of that in advance. If we have patients that, have been declared brain dead, but they're still being on life support, we can contact them before the death in those cases. So just to know, we cannot go beyond that 1 hour limit. It is reported back to each hospital in terms of what is our compliance rate with that ruling for the hour. And so your nurse manager will get reports every month that shows kind of like, has there been specific medical record numbers that didn't meet the hour window, and so they will be contacting you if you're not within that ruling. So just make sure that you're really making that a priority amidst the chaos of a death. That is something that sometimes you can refer to your charge nurse or supervisor to kind of help with if you are in the midst of taking care of other issues, but it does have to be done. And when that contact is made, you want to make sure that you are at a computer where you can pull up the patient's electronic record, and they're going to ask you a lot of questions that deal with criteria so that they can make a decision on the phone with you as to whether this is a case that they would potentially pursue or not pursue. And so you'll get that information fairly soon after making that report. These are just a few slides that talk about the organ recovery process. These are the typical organs that are used for transplant. Again, this is part of the referral process. These are some of the ones that you could make referrals prior to a pending death, and they may have other questions. The reason that they really would like to be the only one who connects with family at the point of referral is that in doing this for quite some time, their statistics pretty much say that if they make the contact and they are consistent with what education and information is provided for families and what level of support is provided to families, they have a much improved success rate with family members agreeing to the donation process. So you can imagine that's true. If one nurse has got a lot of experience, another one has a bias against donation or is very pro donation, you have a lot of variety if the nursing staff at the bedside were responsible for this. The other piece is we're there to care for the patient and the family, and that's our role. And so it doesn't take us out of some unusual role. We're left to continue to do the things that need for their support, but not be tied up in the family's decision making on this particular type of situation. So these are just some of the typical donor characteristics that give you an idea in terms of steps, in terms of the decision making basis being reviewed on a case-by-case basis. Carolina Donor Services will send a on-site evaluation person in their team to look at additional things and to meet with the family directly. So that eliminates your need to have that discussion. It is their responsibility to educate families, to work with them related to grief process, to discuss with them the opportunities, and then also to offer them additional bereavement and life anew services that are provided for those that are agreeing to organ donation. This kind of gives you a few slides that mention a few of the things that CDS will do when they kind of take over the management of the donor. You know, even if you have a donor that's still being left alive based on life support, their team will actually come in and take over the responsibilities for the care until the patient is taken to the OR for the organ retrieval. And this is just some more specific things that they handle. They also have to look at through UNOS, which is their computer database, steps that they go through in terms of determining whether, to match donors and recipients. And this gives you kind of the outline of that. Patients who have active cancer are generally ruled out for donation. That doesn't mean that we don't still call those deaths. We still have to. It used to be that HIV positive ruled people out, but a new act went in place in 2013 where HIV positive organ donors can donate to HIV positive recipients, and usually it's kidneys and livers that are the organs that this applies to. So there are a lot of ethical issues, and I won't go over those, but I'll let you just read through those. Tissues can be used for transplant. Eyes, corneas may be in a separate category, depending on what literature you're looking at, but just to know that more than just the organs themselves can also be utilized. Tissue donation falls under the same kind of conditions. And just know that there's always a moment of honor that's done in the OR by the CDS retrieval team to really take time out to honor the patient that is providing these organs. Do want to talk briefly about different ways that a person can be a donor. There is an actual official organ donor or organ tissue donor card that someone can fill out and keep in their wallet, and as long as there's 2 witnesses that are there, then that is considered a valid way to denote your wishes about that. Another way is since October of 2007, on people's driver's license, when you go in to get your driver's license, they can ask if you want to be one, and they can put this little red heart on your card. It means that you are agreeing to donate your organs and your eyes. It does not cover tissue donation. You would need to register at the NC organ donor site that I'll show you in a minute to add on additional things related to this. The key here on your driver's license is that it is legally binding for adults over the age of 18. For those under 18 who've just gotten a driver's license, it could still be enacted, but it would still probably need to have, it would have to have consent of the parents. So it's important for teenagers who are filling this out to really talk about that in their families in advance. This is the other way that you can register, and you can go online at donatelifenc.org, and in this location you can actually register for all components of organ donation, and it's important for you to go and look at that site just to be aware of it. There's some interesting myths and